explicit connotations. Well, I'm Elise from the crowdfunded translation project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. Their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Chilean left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as Jargon, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballot or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Caviese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled black box algorithms that dominate our lives don't like small creators or small projects. Nor are they particularly keen on ideological viewpoints that are inconsistent with the whims of billionaires. What's more, they positively detest anyone who isn't paying for reach. And then they turn around and make it ever harder to do even that in a useful way. The result of all this is that there are definitely considerably more people who would be interested in this project than actually see any of my posts about it. And that's why I have a small favor to ask you. Tell your friends about the crowdfunded translation project. Share the completed translations, link the Patreon and the Facebook pages. All those links are in the description. Let people know that this project exists and what it's all about. Let them know that I want to hear their ideas for future crowdfunded translation projects at crowdfunded_translations@elisehendrick.com. And if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Ultimately, the crowdfunded translation project is for us all. The whole idea is to translate texts that have fallen through the cracks by making it economically viable for a professional translator, i.e. me, to work on them and to make the results freely available to everyone. I think that a lot of great things are coming out of the project, and even more can result from it yet. But it all depends on making the project visible to the people who might benefit from it and consider supporting it. Thank you for watching for this length of time. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that it will encourage you to get in touch with the crowdfunded translation project, look at our translations, to get in touch with, to get involved with the crowdfunded translation project. Make suggestions, read the translations, let people know that this exists. This could be a great resource, but it's been a real fucker trying to get the word out about it. So thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and share.
Well, welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Being kind is the guys in this mess in the first place.
You can put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. Hola Ignacio, ¿cómo estás? And sometimes I'm not sure until I'm already on stream what I'm going to talk about, but this time I know exactly what I'm going to talk about. So that makes life easier. I bet you can guess. No, get back there. Yeah, there we are. Et bonsoir. Okay. Here we go. It is indeed time to talk about the Pac-Man. Because I saw a little bit of tea being spilled. Unlike my tea, which I do not spill, I drink my tea. But first of all, he decided to go on Gavin Newsom's podcast, where Gavin Newsom talks to fascists about how they all hate poor people together and how they can be more effective at making life difficult for poor people. So, hey, River Rune, how you doing? So, let's get into it. I'm hoping this is chapterized. Hey, old owl hootin'. Oh, good, it is. Good, it is. Ah, okay. Good. It actually gets right into the stuff that I really wanted to talk about.
It's tough. It was tough to see that. So when did you know that you...
Let me know if I need to make any adjustments to the audio. Newsom looks like David Pac-Man in like 20 years. I can't help noticing.
Could make a career out of, using your voice. It's an interesting question. I mean, the first 5 years of this show, it made zero. And I don't mean like it didn't make a lot of money. It made there was just...
Oh, okay. Now I'm kind of interested if the VODs are still available from those first 5 years. Because one of the things we're going to be talking about after this part is the people he takes money from.
There's no revenue. And so
not just the ones that we've talked about before. There are other people he takes money from, it turns out. And he kind of will just take money from any scumbag on the planet.
I think, like, in some sense, getting from $0 to $1 is the spark where it's like, okay, it can make $1. Can this be something? And so I think that was a big deal.
It's really kind of saying something that the way he's thinking about this is not primarily, there are a lot of people in like the political commentary space, especially people who are talking to sort of left-leaning audiences, which I think, that isn't who Pac-Man is, but it's certainly part of who he's trying to talk to, who would say they're trying to reach people, but also it would be but they would like to be able to make a living doing it. And he just starts out with, it's about the money.
And then when I hired my first real employee and was able to say, okay, now this is now a business, I think that was probably the beginning of thinking there might be something to this. And I was in grad school at the time doing an MBA. And my friends were becoming financial...
Oh, wow. A master of bugger all.
...advisors and bankers and going into private equity.
Wow. Okay. Now, last week we saw Destiny suggesting that it was an anti-Semitic dog whistle or something when somebody said that that Pac-Man had said that if he weren't doing this, he would go into finance. But and I was pretty sure I'd actually heard him say that. But here we have it right here. These are the people he hangs out with. Yeah, that's one of the things we're going to be talking about. Yes, indeed, Adria. I'm going to speed this up a little bit.
Very cushy and lucrative in the immediate, but the long term of that just didn't appeal to me. So I said, I'll give myself a year to really see if this becomes.
And was it always? Was it a political show from the outset?
Yes.
And it was commenting about local city councils.
Oh, okay, now I'm actually really quite curious. It would be interesting knowing, how it's going to actually look at how it started.
Always national. Always national. Interesting. Take the picture 21 years ago. What were the big issues? You remember?
Well, 21 years ago, it was in the...
Let's see, 21 years ago. Okay, so we're talking about 2005. Well, there's the Patriot Act, there's the U.S. occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan, the torture was a huge thing, the forced disappearances of Muslims, although that was actually, most of that in the U.S. had actually happened a couple years previously, and Bush had just stolen another presidential election by rigging shit in Ohio. Those are the main things that immediately come to mind. So what are his big issues, I wonder?
Immediate pre-Obama era. So it was the Iraq War. It was, what is it going to look like when George W. Bush is done with his second term? Mm-hmm. What is the direction Republicans are going to go? This was pre-Tea Party. It's like almost ancient history to people who are now 25 and voted for the first time.
Same time it has a lot of echoes of today, right? On the other side, not the Tea Party, but DSA.
Oh, here we go.
For the Democrats,
yes.
Democrats in the wilderness, what happens at the second term of Trump?
Boy. Which is interesting. The ironic thing here, thinking about it, as I just did a little bit more of what we're getting here, is that, in a way, Now, I have said previously, you know, the DSA and the Tea Party are totally different phenomena, and there is fundamentally, there is a lot of truth to that, because the DSA is an actual membership organization, and they do a lot of different stuff. No, it isn't all, like, caping for Democrats. But, and it isn't their purpose. They do not primarily see themselves, I think, explicitly as a rebranding op for the Dems. Whereas the Tea Party was very explicitly a centrally stage-managed rebranding op for the Republicans from the very start. They knew they had to come up with something that would distance themselves from Bush, because Bush's brand and everybody around him were just utterly just toxic waste at that point, even for their base. So, but whereas the DSA, they serve that function, but the Democrats hate them for it, despite the fact that they need the DSA to serve that function. And I don't think that a lot of the people who, you know, have weight in the DSA, don't ask me names, but I don't think they necessarily even see it that way. But in terms of the way things end up working, it is. So in a sense, they both end up being primarily a rebranding thing. I mean, we saw that in 2016 too. I mean, people forget just how similar the situation was. Nobody wanted to hear from the Democrats. The Democrats, you know, people had this terrible taste in their mouth from the primary that Hillary ended up winning. They tried to just call everybody a Russian agent who didn't like, you know, didn't like them in any way. The polls showed people really did not want to hear from Democrats. They were not really benefiting from the fact that Trump was so unpopular as he was and has remained. And then you had like people like AOC and other DSA candidates kind of coming out of the woodwork, winning primaries, and suddenly the Democrats actually looked like something to that a lot of people could possibly see some hope in, at least if there was the possibility that we would see more change, you know, more of these like change candidates. Hello, DP5 layer. Yes. Indeed, I am an ANCOM. I don't think I've seen you here before. Welcome. Always nice to see new people. So, in a sense, that isn't entirely wrong, even though, like, the mechanism and the level of intentionality is very different. But they function, like, the function is very similar.
Going right into it. I mean, I did a commentary that's on my show today, which is making this exact analogy, which is there was a time before Trump, in the Tea Party era, where the establishment Republican Party kind of said, these people are never going to influence the party.
They never said, there was never that time.
Never going to guide the direction. And the Tea Party really led to MAGA and to Trumpism.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, the people he's talking about, the Republican leadership, they were the ones who were speaking at these Tea Party events. There was like, I mean, that was one of the things that led researchers like Paul Street and Anthony DiMaggio all the way back then to conclude that this isn't a thing. This is just a straight up op. That when you looked at the speaking rosters for the meetings, you would see it was just Republican candidates. It was people the Republican Party would want to be speaking to these audiences, not people who are coming from the wilderness and trying to take over or something like that. Not people doing an entryist strategy or anything like that. It was just regular ass Republicans. So I mean, that is where the difference is. The people who are coming up in the DSA are, you know, their whole thing is very specific. They're not really, for the most part, I mean, AOC certainly had connections through, you know, Ted Kennedy and everything, but for the most part, you have people who are at the very least somewhat outsiders in terms of they're not part of, you know, they're not actually part of these circles. They're not playing golf with fucking Schumer and Jeffries and Ghoul Richie Torres, but they have a similar function.
And I've been critical of the kind of what I call do-nothing centrism, which is like, let's find a couple things on the fringes to say we will do and end up doing nothing. I don't think that's good for the Democratic party,
Right.
but also what I'm seeing, I was just looking at the DSA platform, which it has moral motivations that I respect, but a lot of...
I love it when it has moral motivations that he respects. Well, you have to remember, like, there was a time... Pac-Man has been on this shit. Remember, 2005. That's literally when YouTube was new. He was doing this in 2005. So he showed up on the scene at the same time as TYT. At the same time, I mean, which is a big part, I would say, probably, in why he can make money off of it. Because if you started a YouTube channel in 2005, before the algorithms became what they are, when a lot of people really did not see the potential of the platform and were just doing random crap and uploading it, I mean, and you stuck with it, you were actually in with a chance, because you were in a position to do this before the algorithm would throttle the shit out of a small creator. So, and at this time, you know, this is... I'll turn it up more. I had just turned it up some. So, we're talking about a time before, way before, like, Thought Slime, way before, you know, Bridget Empire. And if you don't watch Bridget Empire, you need to watch Bridget Empire. She's great. I really enjoy her stuff, and she, you know, it's really amazing that she has so few subscribers, given how good her channel is. You know, before the Surfs, before any of these people, where you know, not even, you didn't even have, like, fucking ContraPoints or anything. Yeah, but he was doing that 10 years before that. That's how long this motherfucker's been in this. So, at that time, he probably... Well, I have absolutely no idea. I didn't know that he was... I knew he'd been on YouTube for a long time. I did not know that he had been on there, he said 21 years, which is literally as long as YouTube has existed. So, I don't know if he was connected to Air America. It wouldn't surprise me, because, I mean, he would certainly kind of fit in with that.
Completely unrealistic stuff that, if it becomes litmus test worthy, is going to be a real problem for...
See, of course, the thing about completely unrealistic stuff is what he's talking about is, you could say that literally about all sorts of things that we have taken for granted for a long time. Like, you know, getting rid of the Jim Crow laws was unrealistic stuff. The Democrats really didn't, really were annoyed that you had these, like, the civil rights movement that was pushing that, because it was pissing off their southern members. You know, they really tried to shut that stuff up, and it was unrealistic. It was unrealistic because the people who were in any kind of power didn't want it, and absolutely were dead set against it, and they didn't intend to budge. Everything that is good, everything that has an improvement to the way society is compared to the way society was like 70 years ago or whatever, was unrealistic at the time, because, and guys like, you know, the David Pac-Mans of their day would be like, yeah, this is absolutely why. We can't be demanding this of politicians. We can't be demanding school desegregation as a litmus test. That's so unrealistic. You know, we can't be demanding publicly financed healthcare for you know, pensioners as a litmus test. That's totally unrealistic. You know, this is the thing. This has been the whole thing. That was the thing when, you know, if you go back to slavery and you look at the arguments around that, you had people making this exact thing. Well, this is the do-nothing centrism of which he speaks.
Democrats, and so I don't know when the right time is to have that conversation.
Yeah, okay, so we're already moving into it's not the right time either.
To think it's as soon as you realize something's up, it's a good time to do it.
It's interesting, though, speaking of timing, that this attack, and like, I don't think that Pac-Man has mostly gone after anyone to his left in the, like, creator space. But then all of a sudden, Narco Rubio issues that report, you know, claiming that, you know, Hassan Piker and Amy Goodman and DSA and a bunch of groups are actually part of a Cuban communist conspiracy. And all of a sudden, this motherfucker decides to go on the attack. I mean, for, this guy, all he does is Trump slop. All he does is, oh, well, look what Trump did today. Look what Trump did yesterday. Ooh, this person destroyed Trump, which is really weird because Trump is still intact afterwards. That's not how destruction usually works. But actually, when it comes to this, he has very much stood on, he's very much in sync with the administration. That he's doing this at this very moment and not before.
Well, if we talk about it now, how will it affect the midterms? I think now is when it has to be talked about.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it might actually, lose the midterms for the Republicans if you had people who are actually, running on a manifesto that people would actually want. I mean, imagine how unfair it would be to the Republicans if they were running against people who said, let's give everybody health care and stop bombing Iran and doing genocide. Thank you, Riveroon. Did you just know that offhand, or did you look that up? Because either way, I appreciate. It's always very nice when chat brings the stuff that I don't want to interrupt the flow by looking up. So Riveroon, for anyone who can't see this, says, no, David was never part of Air America, but you're right that it is the same kind of crowd. Sam Cedar was, and they worked together. Have huge audience crossover. Yeah, that does not surprise me, especially the audience crossover.
Social democracy is the path forward, which is a sort of Northern European model.
Oh, this is so hilarious because last week we saw him taking all sorts of standard social democratic stuff and saying, this is authoritarian. You can't have rent control, that's authoritarian. Universal health care, that's authoritarian.
So we can go. I'm going to get back to the DSA. It's interesting. We could talk some about those litmus test issues.
Yeah, I feel like I would have heard of him well before I actually first heard of him if he was part of Air America. Because, I mean, that was never really my thing. But I did pay attention to it, and I certainly got lots of emails related to Air America. I mean, if you were in any way like part of sort of the team anti-Bush, I think you ended up hearing about Air America. There was some connection there. So I'd never heard his name back then.
Because I think they're important to illuminate, because not everybody's familiar with some of those platform issues as it relates to private prisons, a number of issues that do deserve a little bit more attention beyond the tonality of sort of this anti-establishment and this desire to see more aggressive and clear leadership, et cetera. But let's jump in your book, because you've been writing books for some time now. You've been at this, and I think I wanted to paint a picture. You've been also at this art form of sorts for 21 years, because so you don't come to this issue that you bring in the book from a perspective as an outsider. I mean, you've lived and breathed this in a pretty profound bottom-up way. You've been at this as well, writing books for some time. You wrote a book in 2025 about the right wing and the echo chambers.
I'm just looking through these chapters here. Does Pac-Man's YouTube channel make him a hypocrite? Oh, okay, yes. I think I saw a clip from okay, yeah, we're watching this.
You've written a lot of children's.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what... I mean, that's why I really insist on getting definitions from people. When we talk about, like, when somebody says we got to protect our democracy, we got to fight authoritarianism. Well, what does that mean? You know, what is the democracy you want to protect? What does that look like? What are the things that you are saying we should be fighting for? When you say we want to fight authoritarianism, are you just talking about new stuff that you want to stop? Or are you talking about all the authoritarian shit that was baked into this thing and that people have been fighting for over, for like 2.5 centuries, literally, to undo? Because, I mean, if you're talking about, because those are two very different ways to supposedly be against authoritarianism. If you're saying no more authoritarian than this versus this is already way too fucking authoritarian and we need to do something about it to democratize the society. And does his shirt have fucking snaps? Is he going on a fucking safari after this?
Books, which is interesting. You mentioned your child's Paw Patrol affinity, which I respect. But you've also written a number of children's books. But this one...
Yeah, well, I mean, this system is See, my problem with the use of the word authoritarian fundamentally a lot of the time is that it's used in this sort of static way. It's used in authoritarianism is this thing, and we're moving towards it. I don't think that's a useful way to talk about it. For one thing, if you look at the examples, a lot of people who are saying that they're authoritarianism experts say, you find they're actually less authoritarian than the U.S. They're just governments that the U.S. didn't like Chavez or something like that. But I don't think that's a useful way to look at it, because, like, what the hell does that mean? It makes more sense to me to look at it in terms of a and I mean, this is not, an original from me, to be clear. I think a lot of people will have already said this. I mean, I didn't get it from myself. I've seen other people say it. But to say authoritarianism is a feature. It is like, it is one axis you can plot on a graph, and you can say, on one side you have like maximum levels of authoritarianism that a society could have, and on the other side you have maximum levels of like sort of top-down, I mean, not top-down, but, democratization of systems where ordinary people at the grassroots level actually really have power institutionalized to work together and decide how their lives are, how the society is going to work. And that to me makes a lot more sense, because then you can say, well, yes, all this stuff makes things much more authoritarian, but we need to do stuff about the fact that, for example, the elections in this country are a fucking joke. And there's basically no real institutionalized popular input into what goes on at the federal level and all that sort of thing. Yeah, Adria, yeah, I think you're exactly right. They're using it as a scare word.
Pay attention how the algorithms and the media wars are suppressing truth and rewiring our brain is your latest work. It's available in September. So
I wonder if he also used AI to write this one.
Love that we've had a chance to talk about the book before it's even out there. And full disclosure, read it, love it. And I really want to dive deep into it because we've talked so much about
I mean, that is like the best negative endorsement that I could imagine.
Talk about this issue and around this issue.
Like, okay, so we're talking about authoritarianism. What about Gavin Newsom going to one of these raids on homeless encampments and personally destroying somebody's only possessions in the world as a photo op? See, that kind of strikes me as a little authoritarian, for example. Yeah, I mean, well, a command economy could be called that, yeah. And it could be authoritarian, too. It kind of depends on where the commands come from. If you have a command economy and it's just one guy saying, okay, we're going to make this many of this, and we make this many of that, and nobody else has any input into it, that would be authoritarian. I think it would be kind of a lateral move from a system where we have now, where it's a handful of investors who are making that decision with no popular input. But, of course, a command economy could be a thing where workers and, communities are getting together at all levels and saying, okay, here are the things we need in our community this year. And, here are the things that we have and what we can do with what we have. And everybody comes together and they work and, they collectively work out a plan that makes sense for everybody involved. And the thing that gets me about the internet is we have the technology for that level of plan. We could do real-time economic planning at the grassroots level in a way that has never been possible, thanks to this stuff. Thanks to this technology. The level of communications technology could be used for that. And instead, it's being used for Dave Pacman's slop. Because capitalism does such wonderful things for us. I mean, really, when you look at it's not just environmental laws. Because the U.S. has all kinds of subsidies that they don't call subsidies. Like the Pentagon budget is entirely subsidies. I mean, not entirely. I mean, some of it is like money for paying people to kill other people. But a huge amount of it is subsidizing the R&D of big tech. I mean, and the aerospace industry. We would not have Silicon Valley without the Pentagon, without DARPA. We wouldn't have any of these, we wouldn't have an aerospace industry in this country if it wasn't massively subsidized.
Understand aspects of it, tenets of it, trend lines of it, but not, I think, how pervasive and profound the issue is around algorithms, around what media is all about. And so let's talk a little bit about this book and start with the obvious, and that is you started the prologue about this arms race, and you're the first to acknowledge you're participating in this arms race, right? And so you, sir, David, are you not the problem?
Like, okay, but this would be great if we... Again, I was just talking about defining things. What arms race are we talking? He's read the book. He fucking wrote the book, or at the very least prompted an LLM to write the book. Supposedly, they both know what's in this thing. This is for people who haven't read it for the most part, because most people haven't read this thing, and most people aren't going to, fortunately. But what fucking arms race are you talking about?
Well, listen, I think everybody is in a sense contributing to this. And also, I think the best thing we can do is identify the systems that are at play and then figure out what are our choices. One choice is...
none of this... It's something to do with algorithms and social media. That is literally all we've gotten. They're having this conversation between them, then we're not really, unless we've read the book and already, are not privy to what any of this is because they haven't decided to clue us in.
Abandon it. If we abandon it, we cede ground to those with terrible ideas to completely dominate. I don't think that's a good idea. The second option is we figure out how to play the game while not kind of losing our soul to deception, lies, and misinformation.
And say NFTs.
That's where I kind of tend to land, which is we could ignore these platforms and algorithms, but then the worst people just take them over.
Right.
And I don't think that makes sense. If
we've gotten a real sense of who he thinks of as the worst people, because I mean, you look at what he applauds.
Understand that these algorithms are...
I mean, he's with somebody who is just a real the slimiest fucking plutocrat in California politics, who actually like gets off on being vicious towards homeless people, the most marginalized fucking people in the state, and who slags off trans people and all this sort of stuff. And he this is somebody he thinks is not one of the worst people because he's here using his platform.
Elections to a great degree. The elections determine who gets power. Who has power determines policy.
And God, that is like the civics class version of this. But the reality is who has power determines the fucking elections. Who has power determines who even gets to be in the elections. Who has power determines what the limits are for what can be proposed in those elections. Like, the idea that the elections themselves decide who has power, they both know this isn't true. Because they both orientate themselves toward the people who have power, namely money. People with money.
So when I talk to people who go, yeah, I spend a lot of time on social media, but I'm not into politics, I don't vote, I talk to them about what do you care about? Almost always they will list issues, things affecting them, that relate to who is in power. And then we can explain, well, you should be engaged in that, because the fact that you don't care about politics, you're just struggling to make a living, that's housing affordability, groceries, energy prices.
See, this term affordability just needs to die. Because the idea is to take something that is potentially radicalizing, namely the question of why everything's so fucking expensive, and what does that have to do with who owns and controls, all of the money and stuff in the society, right? And to actually say, well, why exactly should we have to pay for public transport? It's a public good. We could fund it in a way that it's just available to everybody. Why should we commodify housing? Why should that be a thing where you like gamble with it on the market when there are people who are literally living in fucking doorways and under bridges? Why should that be owned by a handful of people and the rest of us just have to pay through the nose for some shitty place where they painted over the light switches? And they make it about affordability. And the great thing about affordability from this kind of standpoint is that it doesn't promise anything. It promises zero, because everything's affordable to somebody. If I say something is free of charge at the point of use, to use the language that was used to describe the British National Health Service, then you know what you're getting. It's very clear. What you're getting is a public service that does not have a cover charge. It's financed through other means. But if you say affordable, well, what does that mean? how are you measuring it? Who is your benchmark for affordability? Yeah, and transportation keeps getting worse.
By municipal, state, and federal elections and who you vote for.
I mean, we could, just in terms, in just about every single respect, we would be better off. I mean, I'm talking about not just in terms of transport. I'm talking about things like employment. I'm talking about, people having good, stable fucking employment with decent incomes and, and just all sorts of benefits, knock-on benefits to communities. If just a bunch of money had been stuck into a huge push to set up a coast-to-coast fucking, and international, why not, high-speed rail network. I mean, this landmass is so big, it really cries out for it. And if you'd done that, just that one thing, and, without even talking about, I'm not even saying make it free at the point of use in this particular context. I'm saying even if you had to pay for tickets, it would still massively improve everybody's lives, including people who never used it, because it would make everything, you'd have all sorts of people who got employment as a result of it, including not just people who work for the railways, but people who provide services to the people who are working at the stations and stuff like that, and use the stations, and all that kind of shit. But instead, we've spent it on murdering brown people in other countries and giving it to Wall Street scumbags.
And it sort of starts to click. Once we get there...
Oh, and TERFs. Yes, we are spending a lot of money now on TERFs.
Okay, why are you hearing about what you're hearing about and someone else is hearing about something totally different? It's these algorithms, it's these platforms.
And so the big why now? Why this book? It's in some ways...
And here's another example. You talk about the algorithms and the platforms. Yeah. I mean, all of this points to an obvious question. Namely, why is it good that critical communications infrastructure is owned by a handful of rich assholes who can just do with it whatever the hell they want and we just have to live with it? Why is that a good way of doing it? Why shouldn't that stuff be made? Why shouldn't that be socialized? It's fucking social media. It's established that at this point, it is part of living in society to have access to it. So why should these assholes, who largely were publicly subsidized to create it in the first place, why should they be controlling all of it? Yeah, but they don't want to go there because they're getting paid by the fuckers who benefit from this, from the way things are.
Is a partial response, but why the big call out? I mean, pay attention. It's an expressive frame. Wake up. Yeah, maybe another frame.
It's two things. It's one, at this point, the election's more than ever being affected by these platforms. And 2028, probably more than any before that, is going to be highly determined by the narratives that these algorithms determine are the most emotionally salient and put in front of people. That's number one. And number two, because of the AI aspect of it. The whole last part of the book is about...
This is so... he's going to talk about the AI. I wonder if he's going to talk about the shitty children's book that he prompted.
AI will change this. The technology is...
Yeah, exactly. Why is any of this privately owned? Like, the power grid... in living memory was not privately owned. Actually, privatizing that was one, in a lot of parts. I didn't know if it all happened at once, but certainly around here, that was a thing in the 1990s. Yeah.
Essentially there to create synthetic influencers. I have to sit in front of a camera, and if I want to do an hour of content...
I mean, you don't have to. You could not. I mean, I would have to find other jabronis to roast, but I would cope.
To record an hour of video. With technology, you can dial up 1,000 of me. Yep. Some might be male, some might be female. Different identities, whatever will appeal most directly to people. And
is he what will appeal most directly to people? I don't think so.
With nothing other than compute power. And 1,000x what I'm doing, tailored to the algorithms of people. It's 67.
Well, yeah, but the reason that you can do that with LLMs and fucking Gen AI and all that bullshit, David, is because what you do is just such homogenized crap. I mean, and that's all these things can do. I mean, they talk about LLM detecting and stuff, and you hear these like articles where it's like writers are, writing worse in order not to be accused of using AI or something like that. But the reality is, you look at what actually defines Gen AI writing, LLM writing, and what it is cliches. It's the most trite bullshit, and a lot of stuff that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Increasingly, it's stuff that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because they're now, like, just cannibalizing their own output as training data. And so it's slop, and what he does is such just lowest common denominator slop as well. So yeah, I mean, he could easily be replaced.
% of the way there as we're recording this. Very, very dangerous.
And you've run your own experiments. We'll get to that. You write about it in the book.
Yeah.
But the introduction begins with...
Oh, he's run his own experiment, has he? Is that what he's calling the children's book?
AI in some respects. And it's, that sort of iconic image of Donald Trump with the walker. And you make the point that he did this right after he went after states like California being the first state in the country to go after large language model frontier models and do transparency language legislation as it relates to regulating AI. He didn't like that. David Sachs' AI's argument.
I mean, if we're going to talk about California tech laws, they're also trying to make it so all operating systems require government ID and biometrics for somebody to even be able to boot up their fucking computer. We could talk about that. I mean, if we want to talk about authoritarianism, that's a little authoritarian, I think.
That they try to,
but it's for the children.
California and stop other states. All the while, we saw a viral video of Donald Trump in a walker.
That's right. And the point I make in the book is that by the time it was determined that this image of Trump with the walker isn't real, it kind of didn't matter because it accomplished a bunch of different things for different people. Not all positive for not all positive or negative for Donald Trump.
I mean, I think it probably didn't do much. I wonder if it accomplished anything, because you have people who basically don't like him. That's most people. And also notice that he's an obvious just fucking cascading cognitive decline, and is and then you have people who like him, weirdos, and those fuckers don't give a shit. They see it too, but they don't give a shit. I remember back before I'd ever heard of Zionism, Pac-Man and his co-host. Who was his co-host? I don't remember. This is way back before I ever heard of him. So who was he co-hosted with?
But the point was, and it kind of returns at the end of the book when we talk about the coming AI flood, what's going to matter is the emotional reaction that this stuff triggers in people. The truth of it is almost irrelevant. And I even talk about talking with creators who have published accidentally, as far as I know, AI stuff. And I've said...
Wait. How do you do that accidentally, though? Like, I will never accidentally publish Gen AI stuff because I don't fucking use that stuff. I don't use that for anything. I will not touch it. I disable it whenever I can. So I'm not going to accidentally publish any. If something Gen AI is bearing my fucking name, it was done without my permission and without my knowledge. So who are these fucking people who accidentally published some Gen AI slop?
To them, listen, you know that actually wasn't real. Like, I know it was an honest mistake. That wasn't real. And they go, yeah, but it worked. It got clicks. It got views. And
well, yeah, so clearly it was, mistake or not, it wasn't honest.
Agree with the message or not, I think that is dangerous.
And that goes to the beginning of the book. I mean, you open at chapter 1, it's about attention. I mean, period, full stop.
Yeah. There's the idea, I think a lot of people have, that the likes and how much time you spend on stuff on these platforms will naturally surface what's true and what's right. And that is not the way these platforms are designed. And
well, I mean, it's kind of ironic to hear him making that, considering how much algorithmic boosting Pac-Man gets. It's kind of ironic to hear him saying this, because it's true. In fact, actually, I would say there's an inverse relationship. Because, I mean, to some extent, these algorithms are, trying to maximize engagement. So they're trying to show you things that they think you're likely to watch. Or, even if it's just hate watching. But part of it is there is definitely an ideological agenda, which is why, until they got called out for it, it was very common for people who had never watched any fast shit ever on YouTube to get bombarded in their recommendations with fast shit. I mean, I get bombarded with that crap all the time, specifically because I watch so much of it on stream, and I make a note of it for my reaction fodder playlist, so I have this stuff to look at, and the algorithm has apparently taken from that that they can show that showing this to me will result in clicks eventually. But it also switches. But the algorithm has been really weird on YouTube in particular, in my experience, because I will look for one thing, I just need to figure out one thing. At one point, it was like I was trying to set up Ghidra, which is this decompiling program you can use to look at binaries and figure out what does what and stuff. And so I looked that up, and I looked up a couple other things relating to, you know, assembly programming and shit like that. And all of a sudden, my recommendations, it's all the assembly programming videos. It's everything, all at once, just all the assembly programming. And, you know, at one point I was trying to build a PC for the first time, and I looked for stuff like that, and I was just completely bombarded with that. I mean, these days, it feels a little bit like you have a very eager and very affectionate like android who's like you hear, oh shit, you know, she's watching a video on how to do x86 assembly. Okay, we're gonna show all the x86 assembly stuff. Just nothing but, you know, notice me.
Sometimes I think when we attribute political bias to, like, people want to talk about what are Mark Zuckerberg's personal politics, for example.
Well, I mean, we can tell, actually. You can look at the moderation policy. You can look at the fact that the minute that it's appeared the coast was clear, that, you know, all these rich fucks who wanted to maintain some level of mainstream respectability felt that they could, you know, stop pretending to be decent people and could just openly embrace Nazi shit. He immediately openly embraced it. Like, the fact that you can look at the fact that Holocaust denial groups will do not get taken down, and TERF groups do not get taken down, and like fucking fash doxing groups don't get taken down, but they throttle the shit out of anything to do with Palestine. And yeah, I do think when you look at all that stuff in the aggregate, that probably reflects something about the politics of the guy who can tell the people who control the algorithm to tweak it in all kinds of directions. I mean, we see that with fucking Grok on Twitter, where, you know, every once in a while Elon Musk gets you know, some kind of clapback from the algorithm there, and so he immediately switches it over. And he changes it, and suddenly it's calling itself Mecha Hitler or something.
Example. Interesting question. That's not really what determines what does well on Facebook. What does well on Facebook is what starts to spread quickly. And you can think about, I mean, forget about truth for a second, just to think about vaccines, the COVID vaccine, for example. There's two competing claims. One is these vaccines are killing millions of people and the government has covered it up. That's claim number one. Claim number two is, hey, these vaccines are really safe, not as effective at preventing the spread of COVID as we had hoped, pretty good at keeping you out of the hospital.
Okay, I will say, let me say a rare Pac-Man W there, admitting that, because we got really seriously gaslit on that end of things for a while, where you would get called an anti-vaxxer if you just said, you know, these things are not, you know, you would point to actual journal articles making this point and saying, you know, these things are helpful, yes, but they do not live up to the standard we're used to with vaccines, and we should not be approaching their use as if they were the same as the polio vaccine, where the minute a large number of people got polio vaccines, the polio rate just went from 6 figures to 4 figures. Yes, I saw that. I actually saved that video. That may be what we look at tomorrow.
Which one, forget about what's true, which one is going to get grandma and a college student and whoever else to like it, comment, and share it? Yeah. Of course, it's the emotionally salient one. Yeah. That's what these platforms are optimized for.
So that goes to this, you know, then as the book goes on in the next chapter, you talk about, you know, we used to have editors. We used to be able to actually we fix that by making sure we fix to some North Star of truth. So we can build trust.
And the fucking lodestar of truth for him is having fucking Nazis on his platform. Oh yeah, I mean, they absolutely do not. They're looking at the fact, I mean, they're looking at the population, I mean, the popularity, rather, of things like what Mamdani is doing, which is just basic, fairly bog-standard social democracy. The DSA stuff, it is all just, you know, this is stuff that was mainstream British economic and social policy until the late 1970s. From the, like, 1949 till 1979, basically. That's how fucking middle of the road it really is. But they're seeing that when you actually give that a platform and give people the possibility to vote for it, working people are like, holy shit, yes. Yeah, something that might reverse this fucking downward trend that we've been in for our entire lives. That sounds great. And guys like this are really afraid because because if it gets implemented, people will like it and they will want more of it. And the people that they work for will be shit out of luck, potentially, because the way you can do more of that, the way you can have a society that is actually built around what ordinary working people need, is by taking all this stolen shit away from the billionaires who pay for these assholes.
That's the case.
Right. There are a lot of really interesting books I read in writing this, including, for example, about the New York Times investigation into Harvey Weinstein. And one of the things that comes up, or Ronan Farrow's book about the same topic, a lot of these investigative journalism books, and they all tell stories of editors and executives and all of these layers that have different incentives to slow down a lot of these investigations. And then you find out there's personal stuff at play and there's financial incentives, all these different things. That's a problem with that legacy system.
I mean, that's not a problem just with that system. That is because the reason that system works that way is because it is privately owned and operated for profit. And the people who own it have absolutely very clear interests in having certain things talked about in a certain way and having certain things not talked about at all. Like, I mean, you can look at this as somebody, there's a really useful and appalling report that came out from Gender Justice this past week about the level of forced displacement of trans people in the U.S. Well, I mean, the available estimates indicate maybe 400,000 trans people have been basically expelled from their home states and have had to run across the country to find someplace where they have some chance of survival. But it also talks about one of the things it looks at is factors driving this displacement. And it talks about the role of the media and how you have all these major outlets that went at roughly the same time from coverage of trans people that actually included trans people in the conversation, that was somewhat protective of trans people's rights and dignity and stuff like that, was marginally respectful. And then, like a fucking light switch got flicked. Suddenly, trans people were nowhere to be seen anywhere. We're no longer getting any fucking writing jobs in any of these outlets. And the coverage increased. But it was all them talking to these bigots, these fucking grifters who just want to get rid of trans people and stuff like that. And they quantify it, and it's not as bad as Britain. Like, it would be hard to be as bad as Britain. The amount of fucking ink that was dedicated to inciting violence against trans people there is just fucking out of this world. But it's, like, really fucking bad.
One of the great things about the digital platforms is you kind of get around that or you eliminate that. The other problem with it is that with no fact-checking and with no layers of let's make sure we feel good about this, stuff will go ultra-viral simply because it's emotionally salient. So I don't tell this, the book is not about bad legacy media staffers who want...
Okay. I'm trying to find, there was some other stuff that he talks about, and I'm trying to find it here. And if anyone knows the timestamp, I would be very obliged, because he gets into the concept of independent media, and at one point starts talking about how it's wild that oh, here we go, populism and independence. This must be it.
Villain. I mean, is that being able to just sort of distill the essence effective?
Figure out, but I don't think it's a lost cause. I just don't think we're winning with it right now.
I mean, do you sense that Bernie Sanders has been effective? I mean, just calling out the villain. I mean, is that being able to just sort of distill the essence?
The villain? Wait. Oh, okay. Oh, now I see what he's doing. He's saying that Bernie Sanders has been effective at calling out the... I thought he was just calling Bernie Sanders a villain for a second, which, being Newsom, it wouldn't shock me.
It's us versus them. It's not left and right. It's, what Tariq others are saying. It's the top versus the bottom.
Which is such a nonsense talking point that because if you know anything about how these concepts work, the whole point is that if you think that it is the top versus the bottom, that is already moving into, I mean, and an extremely oversimplified but left perspective.
People on top, the system's rigged. Does that have the emotional salience that actually can compete in that space?
I think it does. What we're kind of getting into now is the populist rhetoric. And the thing I talk about populist rhetoric is that it's not...
God, here's another word that just needs to die. It is just used to avoid it's used to avoid talking about the actual ideological content of things, and it's also used in order to lump, sort of left-leaning things, social democratic positions in with just Nazis, and avoid talking about fascism.
Set of policy proposals, and the danger with the populist rhetoric is that if you go to Bernie and to Tucker Carlson, they will give you...
Yeah, here we go. We're just, I will say, Sanders and Tucker Carlson both are pretty fucking racist. But...
you a similar diagnosis up front, which is there are these empowered elites that are in it for themselves. Like, you'll get a pretty similar analysis.
Yeah, if you just kind of avoid the total difference in what they're actually saying, it sounds very similar.
You then go to what are the solutions, and Tucker's solutions are pretty ugly in a lot of ways.
In a lot of, I would have said in all ways. Because he's a big fan of the Great Replacement myth.
Of course, Bernie's
they want to replace. They use that then to refer to fascism as well. As we're seeing here, where he won't call Tucker Carlson a fascist, which he is, or a white nationalist, which he is, but he says populism, and it's just another way of doing a horseshoe theory.
That I would agree with more. I think the risk of adopting the populist rhetoric, which Trump has also adopted, is that then the solution may be one that's actually completely antithetical to the policy and values that we support. But
wait. See, that is one of those things that you say, and the immediate question is, what's, for example?
But on the rhetoric, I think Bernie's been very good.
It's interesting, just, the issue of selling fear and anxiety, issues like crime and immigration.
Or like social media addiction, which is literally not a thing. And the anti-social media addiction lawsuits those are being bankrolled by big tech, it's worth noting. All this stuff all these bills you hear that are where they're sold as standing up to big tech, and if you look at it, it's actually giving big tech a lot of personal data and a lot more control over your life. They're funded by big tech. The big tech money is all the way down the system.
And then being able to get away with selling common indifference on things like climate change and the erosion of our hard-earned national rights is, to me, at the core of this.
Hard-earned. Whose hard-earned national rights? What does that mean? Is Gavin Newsom telling us he considers himself a national minority with some specific cultural rights that he feels are being violated? Are spivs considered a nation?
Challenges we're having as a party, and their ability to shapeshift, their ability to control the narrative, their ability to communicate with taking advantage of so many things you highlighted in the book, or illuminating the book as it relates to the algorithms, but also just this machine they built, and not just in one platform, across the spectrum of platforms. But you talked about, Tucker, in the context of these platforms that are out there, and people and personalities in these platforms that are asserting themselves with this notion of independence, and you challenge.
Oh, here we go. This is
a little bit. Yes, that no one is truly independent in this.
Okay. This is what I was hoping for, and.
In this space.
Yeah, there's obvious ways and there's less obvious ways. First of all, a lot of times when people talk about independent, they either mean I don't have advertisers controlling me or I don't have editors controlling me. Okay, even if you don't have direct advertisers, if you're monetizing your content through YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and other built-in monetization platforms, you're still influenced to create content that won't violate those monetization rules so that you don't.
Yeah, unless you just don't give a shit. And there's a huge difference between... First of all, let's just remember that monetization for most creators, it is literally less. It's nothing. You are getting fuck all. Louis Rossman actually did a video where he was talking about the importance of ad blockers and privacy, and he said, if you're worried about taking money away from YouTube creators that you want to support by blocking ads. If you look at the actual amount that most even large YouTube creators relatively get from Google Ads, it's nothing. I mean, we're talking about if you, he actually pointed out, for most of them, if you just send them 50 cents on coffee, you know, or on their Patreon or something like that, you've already given them more than they would be getting from, like, from, you know, multiple viewers, you know, ad revenue. It is, so that's the first thing. But yes, it's true. But that's, so yeah, that does have an effect potentially if you're worried about getting demonetized, if you actually are getting enough monetization that it even fucking matters. Like, I get not, you know, they'll say sometimes that a video of mine is not eligible for monetization. It's like, none of my videos are monetized anyway. I get less than it's the biggest hit that I had as a video in the past year was the one I did, the stream highlight, where I talked about the so-called promise to America, and I got 400 views. Like, so fucking Google ads don't mean shit to me, and it's not the same thing as when you've got one source who you have business dealings with, and they're sending you enough money that you can live on it. Like, if you've got you know, if you have one source that is already covering all your monthly expenses, and you have a relationship with them, it's not just some algorithmic thing, that's not the same thing, because then these are people in your life, and they feel entitled, probably are legally entitled, to have opinions on what you have to say. And they can turn off, they're the one, you know, they are covering your monthly expenses and ensuring that everything else is just profit, everything else is just gravy. And so if they can turn that off, that's a real threat. The real threat when you get hooked up with this kind of money a lot of the time is that creates the threat of withholding
money. So that's still there. But there's a lot of other ways that people are not truly independent. For example, wanting access to people in power. And this is what I think has been very interesting about Fox News over.
Yeah, I mean, Pac-Man would know about this because access to people in power has been kind of central to him. It's another example of, I mean, he talks about the legacy media as if it's nothing to do with him. But yeah, I mean, access journalism is the standard model. It's why you will rarely see anything that really challenges people in power or says anything that they really don't want to hear, because you want to have that exclusive interview.
The last few months, where they are starting, I mean, just 2 days ago, when we learned about more troops tragically killed in the Iran war, Fox News didn't really sugarcoat it. They even played a clip of Trump saying months ago, this is going to be 2 to 3 weeks and nobody's going to die, and then they've got this. I don't think it's out of a desire to kind of plant a flag and say, we now oppose Trump. But I think it's hedging because they don't know what comes next. They don't know what's going to happen in November.
Well, and they have owners, and those owners are looking at, probably have investments that are not necessarily being benefited by this. Yeah, exactly. He wants to be around these figures. He wants to be around Harris and Biden and all these fucking people that I would actually pay good money to be for assurances that I would never have to be in a room with.
They don't know if this president is going to be the lamest of lame ducks for 2 years and we'll see approval ratings in the 20s. So it's about preservation. We also want access and to stay in good graces with the Republican Party. And
yeah, and he wants access. Like,
replaces Trump.
He understands this because this is him too.
Independence, I would argue that it's not.
Well, yeah, no, it isn't. It literally is not independence because they are owned by companies. They're literally owned by large corporations. And Fox, from its inception, has always had all its key positions controlled by Republican Party operatives. So, like, it would be ridiculous to even say it's independent. It is certainly not an example. If you want to say nobody is truly independent in some sort of philosophical way, which is what he's going for, in order to turn around and kind of justify the fact that he calls himself independent despite not being independent. But you would never use them as that example because they're obviously a house organ.
How are you able to balance that in your own? What's your sort of situational awareness about your own capacity to maintain that independence? I mean,
your situational awareness. Oh, okay. He's one of these guys. He's very mil-spec, Gavin Newsom. he's got his situational awareness. He's watching his six. Like, just throwing these fucking words in there. Yeah, because he wants to sound like a tough motherfucker or something.
Advertisers, you've got an audience. Yep. You have the same desire to have access, to get the right guests, and be, how do you work through all that?
The first thing is I try to never do anything that is against my kind of existing framework of values.
Which is really why it's helpful to have such a flexible framework.
So if I go and interview someone somewhere, I want to...
So, like, his existing framework of values, somebody pointed this out. A lot of stuff got dug up this past week because he decided to have a go at social democratic DSA connected streamer Hassan Piker. For example, when Israel bombed the first of many hospitals that they bombed in 2023-2024 at the height of the genocide, he immediately promoted the Israeli bullshit talking point that actually it was the Palestinians who did it. He attacked Rashida Tlaib for her not accepting that talking point. And when that was very quickly debunked, I mean, there's no evidence that he's directly paid by them. The evidence is that what we know, the people we know do pay him, actually are, like, this 1630 fund mostly, and the various scummy advertisers he's connected to. But he certainly is not, I would say he would probably be eligible. But he never came back to that. He never retracted that. He never said, he never issued an apology and said, yeah, it turned out that the people who said that Israel did it were right. And when Israel then went on to destroy every single hospital in the Gaza Strip, he said nothing about it.
Make sure that I'm not interviewing someone in whatever way I would normally do it because of somebody who has said, hey, come to our convention or go to this thing or go to that thing. I'm always going to only be upfront with my audience about, here's someone who's...
He's going to be very upfront. That's why he's shown us his chorus contract. Because he's so upfront. That's why the only reason that's why it took Taylor Lorenz's reporting to show that he was on their payroll. Because he's so upfront with his audience.
Someone who I don't, and I'm not going to let any kind of financial relationship come in between that. I don't talk to anybody from any of my advertisers. I never have conversations with them. We've luckily never had an advertiser that got word to me, hey, they didn't really like how you... Fortunately, it's never...
If your advertisers never object to your content, that doesn't necessarily... Okay, there's a possibility that your content is just irrelevant to your advertiser. That's possible. Or it could be that your content is entirely consistent with what your advertiser wants to see.
Happened, but I have no conversations with advertisers. Right. And if they said something like that, I would say, well, that's not how we do it.
This is also very carefully stated, because Chorus isn't an advertiser. But what we know from the fucking... Actually, I imagine... I haven't heard him say this, but just judging from his entire tone... He would be one of these people who says, actually, the whole problem is Netanyahu. And if we got one of these great people in there, like Yair Lapid or something like that, then everything would be fine. I mean, because that is the liberal Zionist line now, to just say, the whole problem is Netanyahu. And if you got rid of him, everything would be fine. But then they don't want to do anything that would get rid of him. But, Chorus isn't an advertiser. And what we know from the contracts that have been made available is that they maintain very, very close contact with the creators on their payroll, like daily messaging meetings, according to one of the contracts that's been made available.
The platforms are the platforms. There's no doubt that there's content I could do that would get me demonetized or even kicked off of the platforms if it were extreme enough. Those aren't really the sorts of things I believe and do, so the risk of that happening is relatively low.
So what he's saying there, that's a mouthful. I mean, he's saying the point, actually, if you remember, there was a Noam Chomsky interview in, like, the 1990s, I think. It was a while ago, just judging from the video quality, on Channel 4 in Britain, where... the guy he's talking to, I forget who it was, goes, well, nobody's censoring me. Nobody tells me what to say. I'm not censoring myself. I believe every word that I say. And Chomsky makes the point that, yeah, but if you didn't believe what you said, somebody else would be here saying it instead of you. And he just made that point right there, because what he's saying is that he toes the line for the love of the game, basically.
Talk about us being trapped, and obviously we talk about the business model around polarization, and we've highlighted that. And we talked about that. You highlighted in a much deeper way in one of the chapters in the book. But this notion that we're trapped in this feed, and you picked that apart a little bit in terms of what podcasts may mean that we can get out of this feed a little bit. But illuminate us more. I mean, what do you mean by trapped in the feed?
Well, to the extent that you want to be a participant in some of these town square conversations that are happening, they're happening on these platforms at this point. We've lost as a country even the idea of at 6 p.m. people gather around and watch 30 minutes of the nightly news.
Yes. Well, yes, because the thing about this is we have something better than that. The people who are nostalgic for that sort of media landscape, for the most part, are either very naive or very dishonest, because there's this idea that people have that Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite and all those motherfuckers were just they were honest guys who would just tell you what happened and that was it. And the only reason that you remember them that way is that there was not this kind of real-time pushback, this kind of real-time fact-checking that would happen. There wasn't a TikTok where people, where like the Vietnamese resistance could post stuff and say, look, this is what they're actually doing here. This is what, this is what they're actually doing to us. There wasn't any of that sort of thing. So they controlled the narrative and were basically unchallenged. So it can feel as if that meant that there's nothing. And now we have a huge number of voices, and some of those voices are totally full of shit, and other of those voices are, earnestly trying to point out important and accurate things, and some of them are a little bit of each. And it makes it a lot more confusing. You have to use a hell of a lot more judgment in order to engage with media, much more than you do when you just have a handful of people who just go on television and just tell you what it is, and there's no conversation collectively in which additional and contradictory facts can emerge.
Cronkite.
Right, ratings are very low there. Even with sporting events, things are so fragmented that the town squares really are happening asynchronously. It's not all at the same time, but it's over these periods of 6, 12, 24, 48 hours where these stories build and swell online. So instead of it's the Super Bowl kickoffs at 6:28, it's 48 hours of a building story like a ship, being pushed up by a swell. And then it kind of comes down and we move on to the next thing. If you want to be involved in that and participate in it, it's on these platforms. So I think people are trapped in that sense. And then number two, a lot of the platforms used to have these reverse chronological feeds. Facebook at the beginning, if you were friends with 20 people and you went onto Facebook, this is a while ago now, you wouldn't see an algorithmic feed of what you're most likely to enjoy. You would just see reverse chronological of my 20 friends, what's the last thing that was posted and the one before that, and you would kind of get to the end. There's no end anymore. You can always scroll and get to the next thing, which is part of why it's...
And 90% of it is now ads. You have to just kind of scroll through all these fucking ads to see the people that you actually are on the platform to talk to. And then occasionally Facebook is nice enough to just hide people you care about from you. And if you are one of those sorts of people who needs to have visual reminders of things occasionally, because when there's a whole lot of stuff going on and you're and then weeks go by and it's wait a second, I haven't heard from her in ages. What's she doing? Did she did she fucking block me and I didn't know it? Did I fuck up? And then you go to the page and it's oh no, the fucking feed just hasn't been showing me her because they want to show me fucking crypto ads.
It's very addictive. But a lot of those tools that let you kind of control the ecosystem you're in have been taken away.
AI is blowing everything out of the water, and you end the book talking a little bit more about AI. You begin with that Walker video and just around truth and trust in relationship to artificial intelligence.
Okay, now we're gonna switch over because we got to the part that I wanted to see there for the main part. We might come back to this, but hang on. I want to switch over because there's this video from the Vanguard. We're not going to get to see the whole thing. We don't...
To that. And guess what? It didn't fucking matter. The fact that,
Wow, that is a wonderful freeze frame. I've got to back this up now. Oh, God.
Well, that's bullshit.
Kyle Kulinski, who, honestly, I have to say, he can really fuck off. If you remember what he had to say about the women who came forward for, because they'd been essayed by fucking Graham Twatner. He really needs to fucking sit down, and I don't know if there has been a profuse apology from him for the, sorry about that, extraordinarily shitty things that he said there, sounding like fucking Conor McGregor, then I certainly haven't seen it. Oh, somebody, okay, here we go.
Friend, because I am truly independent. It is true in the sense that I have the default ads on YouTube, but of course there's that big buffer between me and the advertiser. I never talk to them. I don't know who's getting money, etc. So that's what he means, that yeah, that money comes in, but it is still independent. There's a big buffer there, and I don't talk to any of them ever, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is a certain level of control that's there, but it does not mostly come from, because very few people are actually getting enough money off of these ads to actually have any to have it matter. I mean, if you are getting monetized as a creator with a fairly normal number of followers, you're talking about like a couple of bucks a month, maybe.
So it seems like coke to me. It seems like coke because David knows. It's finally catching up with him that he always read a gazillion ads. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Correct me if I'm wrong. Am I having a fever dream, or did he actually do a
Backstreet Boy because of his hair?
Ad? Did he do a crypto ad? Did David Pakman do a crypto ad, or was it like an NFT ad? He did like a crypto ad or some shit.
Hella did crypto ads. Hella did crypto ads, promoted it to his audience on multiple occasions. I know he stopped because of the tremendous backlash he was getting, but yeah, there are multiple screenshots that we can look at and videos of him doing ad reads for cryptocurrency companies.
100%. I pulled up some examples for you guys. Here's...
Okay, here we go. This is what I wanted to just, as the sort of a shot and chaser setup for tonight. David Pakman is promoting crypto scams to his followers. Any notion you might have that he's promoting something legitimate will be disabused when you read the comment section on his video. Here is an advisory put out by the SEC of the Philippines detailing problems with Centric. This is one of the scams that he was...
And here's a post on the Destiny subreddit from 5 years ago. David Pakman is promoting crypto scams to his followers. This is a well-documented fact. Despite David Pakman's best efforts to hide it, as you can see here, video unavailable. Apparently, David Pakman is trying to cover his tracks. Zach?
Oh, what the fuck? Yeah, you used to be able to play this. We've done it on the show multiple times. I know we can go back and find it in our videos where we'll be able to watch it, but that's absolutely insane. Fuck him.
Yeah, 100%. But again, this is well-documented fact. It happened multiple times. Here's another...
Yeah, see, this is totally the same as just getting some level of monetization from fucking Google ads.
Reddit, David Pakman promotes another crypto scam. This time it's some cryptocurrency called Centric.
Oh, yeah.
It has an FEC advisory put out against it.
It should be SEC. FEC is Federal Elections Commission, and I don't think that they were putting out advisories on crypto scams.
In 2020 in the comment section, and his likes is being astroturfed as hell. I think.
Oh, we should all try to go into Discord when he's doing live calls on Wednesday and confront. Yeah.
Video was also privated by David Pakman, who again is desperately trying to cover his tracks. And then here's just a third example in case you guys don't believe me. Again, from his own subreddit, David Pakman continues shilling crypto and stock platforms in his videos. Lost a lot of respect for him for pushing his audiences.
Oh yeah, okay. This is an entire video dedicated to shilling for crypto, not just a fucking ad. Yeah, he's very independent. Like, what's interesting, actually, now that I think of it, is he did not actually defend him calling himself independent, which last I checked he still does, despite the fact that he's been exposed as very much not being. He just said, we're none of us really independent, are we? I mean, the people who are getting bankrolled by dark money groups and fucking crypto scammers are just the same as the people who are dependent on platforms for access to audiences.
Platforms that promotes speculative gambling. Again, he got backlash from his own audience on this, and now he wants to act like, oh, me.
Oh yeah, this is the David Pakman Reddit.
People that don't take crypto money, basically the same, because they're also on YouTube. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? Some of us don't take crypto money.
Tomas, I have not heard about this interview with Kashama. What happened? Tell us more.
Some of us do. We all operate on YouTube. You're the one who's guilty. It's not a wash. It's not just like, oh, maybe everyone's also corrupt because ads play on their YouTube video, ads that we have no control over. I don't know who the fuck is advertising on this live stream. I'm sure, there might have been an ad.
I mean, and the thing is, if you're a queer creator in this space, chances are you're not getting any ads because they fucking demonetize you just for being openly queer on YouTube.
Ready, it might be coming up. I don't fucking know what that ad's going to be for. It could be for literally anything. It could be for Ben Shapiro for all I know. I'm sorry if you're having, to be subjected to that, but it's not our fucking fault. We didn't decide what ad plays. We have no...
Yeah, I had a while, I haven't heard what ads are being shown on my stream on Twitch in a while, but for a while there were ads for, like, the fucking Air Force on my on my language stream on Twitch. Like, and as far as I can tell, there is no setting you can say there's certain advertisers you don't want to have shown, because I would be like fucking smashing that button.
Like whatsoever with the companies or commentators or whatever, that puts ads on YouTube videos.
Oh yeah, and I was watching a video the other day about the guy, or with an interview with the guy that founded Polymarket, right? And look, it's this right here, David Pakman promoting speculative gambling. This guy was talking about how it was a blessing for all of these political figures to start promoting gambling and Polymarket to their audiences, because it gave them a huge way of embedding their platform with people who aren't interested in sports and getting those.
Yeah, like, and yeah, Polymarket. If there's one thing that is really just had a wonderfully, just visibly corrosive effect on the quality of not even all that great to start out with creators. Just look at Polymarket and fucking TYT. I mean, how that started and how it's gone is just utterly
people hooked on gambling. So it's extremely pernicious. Absolutely.
WTF is you. I is me. Let's just say Kashama was too radical for breaking points and they got overloaded. Crystal and the other guy seemed mad. Oh god, I have to see this. Because I actually just read an interview with her in Current Affairs that was quite good. I think she made a lot of valid points in it.
Nefarious, self-centered behavior to promote all this. It's just motivated by greed. This is a man who can make plenty of money just using his YouTube account.
100%.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Kyle and
I mean,
glorious clap back to David Pakman.
That's the thing about getting in on YouTube and on the ground floor. Because if he's been on YouTube for 21 years, he's been on YouTube since YouTube exists. And that is an utterly enviable place to be. I am actually kind of kicking myself a little bit every once in a while, because I was, YouTube, I was 26 when YouTube started, but I didn't see it, it becoming this kind of a thing at the time either. It was all sorts of shitty videos. To get an idea of the kind of place YouTube was in those days, The Onion had a headline that I still remember. YouTube hosts competition to make good video, because it was all just random people uploading shit that nobody would ever want to see. Virtually nobody was bothering with production values or scripts or anything like that. Nothing like that. It was just random crap, and anyone who went on there with an actual plan to make actual content that was suited for the medium and had production values and stuff, on roughly on par with what you see on television or something like that, and could actually get some kind of an audience. If they started there, you could end up with a huge audience, because the algorithm was not really a thing back then. So a lot of what David Pakman has in terms of an audience just comes from the fact that he made the extremely good business decision to get on YouTube when YouTube was new. And with that, it is time to wrap up for tonight. Tomas, are you in the Discord? Because if you have the link to that interview, I would very much like to see it. I don't know if Nightbot will allow you to put it in chat, but if Nightbot will not, then you can always put it in the Discord. I would very much like to see that. Sounds like it was quite interesting. Thank you to everyone who joined in. That's the Discord link for anyone who would like to join. I will be back at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and I look forward to seeing you then.